Hi, if you're watching from identityweek.net, I'm Evie Kim-Singh, the editor, and I'm sat down today and I'll be speaking with Senior Technical Advisor of Easy Dynamics, Jay Leslie. It's great to speak with you today, Jay. You've got a great event planned at Identity Week America, which is happening later this year in October. And you're our silver partner, and you'll be showcasing on our exhibition floor. Um, just a bit about the company, the overview for our viewers. You're a leading technology provider with a focus on cloud computing, cybersecurity, and information sharing. And we're just going to look into those focuses now. My first question is, why is identity, credential, and access management so critical to zero trust architecture?
That's a great question, Evie. So core to zero trust architecture is continuous verification that a subject requesting access to an object is who they claim to be, and also that that subject has only the authorized level of access to the object they're requesting. So a subject's identity is only as trustworthy as the credentials, especially the authenticators used to verify them. Modern credential management involves minimizing the identities a subject may have. So, some systems had like multiple identities back before modern ICAM. These days, you try to minimize it. So, you use technologies like single sign-on, for example, to ensure that there's only, minimizes the number of identities the user might have to hopefully just one. And so, you want to make sure you use strong authenticators. So a password is considered a pretty weak authenticator, right? But they're combined with other things. You have like multi-factor authentication, which can make that verification of the identity a lot stronger. So also there's access management. That's the other part of ICAM. Access management ensures that not it goes beyond ensuring that the subject is who they say they are and gets to, do they have the right level of access to an object at the right time? And I'll give you an example of why that's important. Say I'm an employee of Easy Dynamics, right? That doesn't mean that I should have access to everything on Easy Dynamics network or every resource that they have. It means that I should have access only to the appropriate level of object access that I need to do my job. And going beyond that, it's also important for that to be time-based, for example. Like say if I get a promotion or a demotion or something happens, that access should change dynamically. So a modern ICAM system will allow you to change access to basically evaluate what a user should be able to access in real time or dynamically.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear about kind of those solutions being enhanced, and having users having the right level of authentication and access. What are some of the challenges with that then that you face while implementing modernized authentication?
Yeah, there's several challenges. I can speak to two. One challenge is prioritization. So you might be working with a client who, they know they need a modernized ICAM system, but if it's a big organization, not everyone may be aware of the priority of implementing it. Their first priority for most users and system owners is to get their job done, right? It's not to have a secure system. They know it's important, but that's not what they get paid for necessarily. They may, for instance, be completely on board with the need to use phishing resistant and replay resistant authentication, but a system owner may not be okay with disrupting their workflow during the transition. So that requires communication from the part of the implementer to the client about exactly when things are going to happen, the level of disruption that might take place, and efforts that the implementer will take to minimize that disruption. Um, a system may also be on board in theory, but they may resent what they see as an unfunded and otherwise under-resourced implementation mandate. So, that overcoming that really requires, again, communication, not just from the implementer, but also from the management of the organization, because that carries a lot more weight than we're ever going to be able to apply to the situation as implementers. I think another challenge can be perceived duplication of effort. So say if you're implementing MFA, and again, it's a large organization, there may be some units in that organization that already have multi-factor authentication, which is MFA, um, but they may not have the strength of multi-factor that you're implementing, right? So, for example, they might have multi-factor that works at more at the network level rather than at the application level, and it's better than nothing. But for zero trust, especially, you want that the authentication to be close to the object that's being accessed as possible. Network level just kind of gets you into the network. You want that authentication to be really close to the object itself that's being accessed. So those are two big challenges. And as I spoke to earlier, communication is key to that. And that's communication from the implementer about the pace of the change and when things are going to happen, and also communication from the organization's management that this is important and this is why, right? Giving reasons as well as the emphasizing the importance of the change.
And I guess another challenge with that is you're kind of balancing innovation with cybersecurity all the time with compliance and making sure you're compliant with regulations. How easy or difficult is that to do?
Well, it can be difficult. It can be quite a walking of the line in a way. Most organizations have their own security policies in place, but the pace of innovation often exceeds the rate at which organizations change their policies. A good example of that is several years ago, NIST changed their password recommendations such that um, they required long passwords, but not necessarily complex passwords. And also, they stopped having a periodic change requirement, which is great. That makes the system far more secure, makes authentication far more secure. But oftentimes, an organization's policies may still require complex passwords and periodic change. And when you're trying to implement a modernized password management policy, you may run into that wall. And one way to get around that is to not just work with the organization as the implementer on changing the technology, but also working with them to review their policies and make sure their policies are up to date before you implement a technical change.
Brilliant. We've spoken a lot about multi-factor authentication, which helps to assert the identity is who they say they are. Um, Friction can contribute to a poor user experience. How do you overcome this?
There's several ways to overcome it. One important way is to make sure that the authenticators are as seamless as possible and seamlessly used as possible. We're used to multi-factor authentication these days, and probably it's becoming less so, but still it's often the case, is the use of a password and then having to pull out an authenticator, a phone or something like that with an authenticator app on it, and then type in a number into your application, and that gets you in. That's a one-time password. No one likes typing in passwords. No one likes digging out a phone looking for a one-time password. But that's not the only form of multi-factor authentication there is. A good example of a better way forward is something like Apple Face ID or the Google fingerprints, and also they have Face ID as well. But with those, for example, to access a banking application, I just fire up my phone, click on the app, I look at my phone, and it authenticates me. And that's actually a form of multi-factor authentication that most people probably don't even think about. So the multi-factor comes in play because you're actually authenticating to your phone with your face, and that's something you are. That's a biometric. And the phone itself is registered with the bank as an authenticator. So that platform, and it's called a platform authenticator actually, is registered with the bank. So that's something you have. So you've got your face, which is something you are, your phone, which is something you have, and that comprises a very secure method of two-factor authentication that has virtually no friction. And that's for phones, but that same platform authenticator technology is taking hold on regular laptop and desktop computers as well. Windows Hello for Business is one example of that, and there are other companies that provide it for more of a platform agnostic way. But at Easy Dynamics, we have implemented Windows Hello for Business in a way that allows for pretty seamless communication that involves biometrics and does not involve typing in a password.
Um, How do you see digital identity changing the security landscape in the short term, longer term? How is Easy Dynamics contributing to that?
Yeah, so Digital identity is really interesting. I think it's going to have a really profound impact on the ICAM landscape in the next probably few years. One example of that is mobile driver's licenses. So you have a digital credential that is really strongly tied uh, to an identity, to a person, well, actually to a subject rather. And with that, going back to earlier in our talk, you can have one identity for a person. I'm Jay Leslie. I have my mobile driver's license, and for example, if I'm making a credit card transaction, I could take that mobile driver's license and use that to, or the credit card company and myself could use that in conjunction to verify that I am who I say I am, which could eliminate online credit card fraud and make a lot of online transactions a lot safer. Easy Dynamics is in the process of kind of examining technology, digital identity technologies like mobile driver's licenses, and just keeping abreast of the pace of change and looking for ways to implement them in the near term to secure the ICAM landscape even further.
But it's great to speak with you today. Thank you so much for our conversation, and we will put your stand number so people know where to find you on site. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Evie.